Okay guys, we're going to do a quick video for you here today to describe and to demonstrate the REISkip 2.0 upload and field mapper system. It's really intuitive, but you may not have seen something like it, so we want to make sure it's crystal clear. There's two ways to begin a bulk skip trace with us. You can either click this button in the top that just says skip trace, or you can scroll down and click this icon that says skip trace a list. Either way, you're going to begin a wizard that looks like this, and when you get to this beginning screen, you're just going to hit start. Once you hit start, you're going to come to a page that goes over some really important information about the system and basic policy. I'm not going to go through every line item, but I will highlight the most important things. Number one, you must use a CSV file, critically important, and that's a CSV or a .txt, a text file. And one important note is that it's not enough just to put CSV at the end of your file name. You have to actually go to the drop down in the center of your screen and choose one of the CSV file types. If you try to upload a PDF, it won't work. All right, number two, that's really important. This is the bulk process. We have a separate process for doing singles, but for a batch skip, you have to have at least 50 records, okay? Lots of other important data, but the final thing that I'll highlight is that at the bottom you will always see the then current pricing. Right now we have promo pricing, okay? But once you've seen all these items and you're comfortable, you're going to click I agree. All right, the system's gonna ask you, do you have a list? You can either upload a new list or refresh one that you already have. We'll talk about refreshing a list later. For now, let's just choose upload a new list. Now it's time to name it. Here's a quick word to the wise about naming. It needs to be something that is very clear and relevant to the type of list that it is, but I'm gonna go you one better and say that while this is a good, well, it's a decent name for a list, it's vacant houses in Macon, I would advise you to go one step further because I want you to make it easy for your future self. And the best way to do that is put a time or a date tag on the back of that name. Now we know that it's from November of 2019. Because if you're still working this strategy in 6 months, and you probably will be, you don't want to come back and see all of your lists here in REISkip and they're all named essentially the same thing, just variations of vacant Macon. This timestamp is going to help you a whole lot when you come back. So just a word to the wise. Once you have chosen a name for your list, you're going to click next. Okay, now it's time to upload that list, and you can either navigate your computer's file system or you can drag and drop. I'm just going to drag and drop for simplicity. And I want you to note that once I do that, instantly, in less than 1 second, the system has gone in and read all of your column headings, okay? And if you have bought this list from a list provider, someone like ListSource or what have you, you're gonna notice they often have lots and lots and lots of columns. All of this is data that comes back from one of those standard list providers. Lots of data, most of it's good and helpful, but we don't need all that. Okay, if you notice over here, this is our boilerplate. These are the things that we need to be able to do your skip trace. We've got 12. Okay, and of those 12, the first 10 are critically important. The bottom two, the final two, are discretionary, and we'll discuss those here in a moment. But your job at this point in the process is simply to match or map your field names over to the labels that we have in our boilerplate. And the reason is simple. When you buy one of those lists, often they call things by different names than we do. We call it simply first name. They may call it F name, which is pretty common. So whatever it's called, you're just going to drag that over to our label. Okay, and it's just as simple as you see here. You're just going to drag and drop. Okay, I won't scroll through all these because it is a pretty unwieldy list. I'm going to finish up the mapping here while I talk about something else. I want to talk about addresses. The property address is the address of the property in question, the one that you actually want to buy. And we need that in the context of REISkip because we have supplemental data that we're going to give you. And as long as you give us the property address, we're going to give you lots and lots of really rich data about the property that we have in our own database. Okay, so we need that. It's critically important that we have the property address. The mailing address is actually different. The mailing address pertains to where that person lives, right? Because we go back to the example of the Macon, Georgia houses that are vacant. he doesn't live in a vacant house, the owner. He lives somewhere else. So wherever he receives mail is where we want to try to contact him. So just as a rule of thumb, the mailing address is always going to be the more reliable way to find contact information for your prospect, okay? And often those two addresses, property versus mailing, are different, okay? So we're always going to use mailing address for that. So just to wrap up on that particular topic, the property address we need, that's imperative. You got to put in the property address. If you have the mailing address, please put that in. It will help us to find more accurate data. If you don't have the mailing address, that's okay. We'll do our best to find it on our own, okay? So that's the distinction between property addresses and mailing addresses. The final two fields that I discussed briefly were notes and custom fields. Notes is exactly what it sounds like. You may have made notes if this was a list that you created on your own. Maybe you made it driving for dollars, and there's reference points about that property that you want to keep with this list. Just drag them over into notes. And custom fields is special. Custom pertains to if there are things that you want to have access to that are not in our boilerplate. You know, say you want to always have the assessed value, or the year assessed, or the size of the property, you know, things like that. You can just drag those things. You can drag multiple of those fields into our custom fields label, and then that way all of those things will travel with your list through the skip tracing process. Okay, so once you have completed the mapper, you're going to click next. Now it's time for you to just review. The system is combing over all of your data, all of your fields, and making sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And it's going to give you the opportunity to review and make sure that you've got everything where you intended to put it. So you're just going to look really quickly and make sure our first names lining up under first names, our last names lining up under last names, etc., etc., etc. If everything looks good, you're going to click approve. And now it's time to check out. At checkout, we've already got your credit card on file, so it's going to give you an estimated cost, which is just the number of records in your list times that, then current cost per match. It's going to give you an estimated total. But remember, you're only going to be charged for the matches, so the actual price may drop if there are records that we could not find. Okay? So once you get to the screen, you're at the end. Click Buy Now. The system will begin to dynamically skip trace your list, and you will always get your results within minutes, but often within seconds. So that's it for using the Upload and Field Mapper system. We will go over some other features and functions in future videos. See you then.